Hi guys, James back again, and I decided to do a little bit of a change. I just went to my living room in my apartment, and I've got this cool little roller chair, and I thought I'd see if you guys liked a different view of posters, maybe. Maybe not, just felt like it. Anyway, so back with another list. This was one I'd been working on for a little while, and along with the gangster films and the part 2 to the horror films, I finished this up the other night and was pretty psyched about this list. I will warn you though, I am going to spoil 2 movies on this list, but since I found that little spoiler alert graphic, I will throw those up. But I'll tell you when I'm about to spoil the 2 movies. I'm just going to say it right off the bat. Just when I get to them, I will. So this is the top 10 sci-fi films. And I shall start with number 10. Number 10 is a movie from 2001 called Final. And it's directed by Campbell Scott, who most people know as an actor. He also directs occasionally. And it stars Dennis Leary and Hope Davis. Jim Gaffigan's in there, although it's probably been 18, 19 years since I watched the movie, but I do remember elements of it, and though I'm not sure I knew who Jim Gaffigan was back at that time. Anyway, the film basically is Dennis Leary's character, Bill, waking up from a coma in a psychiatric hospital. And he's convinced of certain delusions that he's from a futuristic society and he is there being held because he's going to be executed for what he knows. And Hope Davis is the psychiatrist who's treating him and who's trying to dissuade him of these delusions. But you're wondering as the movie goes on, and it's sort of like, well, is he crazy? Or is he telling the truth and she's in on it? And it's a pretty, I'd say it's a pretty low budget movie. I don't know if you'd say high concept, but a lower budget, simple movie. But a lot of it's in the dialogue in the sessions between Dennis Leary and Hope Davis, and to like build the world around them just by what they say to each other. And you're not sure what's true, who's telling the truth in this one. So that is Final. Okay, number 9, we have a film called Krull. And this is a classic sci-fi fantasy. It honestly could have fit on the fantasy list I did. I don't remember why I left it off of that, but I decided, well, I needed another one to plug into this list, and this one works. This is from 1983, and it is pretty I guess it's considered a cult classic. It's pretty awesome. It's a little bit cheesy. I remember seeing it a few times as a kid, and I remembered elements of it, and I had always been aware of it. And I remember we were going through Value Village one time, and I found the VHS, like, oh my God, I have to have this, because I hadn't seen it since I was a kid. And I knew there was a special edition DVD out there somewhere, but I didn't feel like trying to get it online or anything. And then, I want to say a couple years ago, I found it at Walmart, and they had put out like a retro version of the Blu-ray, which the slipcase, you've probably seen them. The slipcase is a picture of the VHS case with the tape being pulled out, and that's the slipcase they put over the Blu-ray. It's great. But the movie is essentially a prince who's getting wed to a princess to unite 2 families' kingdoms. They're on this faraway planet, and then these men or creatures attack, kill the two kings of the 2 families, kidnap the princess, and he has to go and rescue her, and has to find, and all these creatures work for this giant monster and the only way to kill this monster is to get this like 5-bladed throwing star or something. But it's really cool looking, but you just have to see it. It's got its own charm to it. But you have some of the acting debuts of like Robbie Coltrane, Liam Neeson, and you watch the movie, it's just like, I recognize that guy, but like when I was a kid, no one knew who they were, or I didn't know who they were. But I also didn't have as much of a film appreciation as I did when I was like 7. Anyway, so that is Krull. Number 8, we have a film called Love. Now, this is not to be confused with the 2015 Gaspar Noé film Love. I like that movie too. I like this one for completely different reasons. This is from 2011. This is a movie by William Eubank, who did last year's Underwater with Kristen Stewart. This was his first film. It's also the first film that is scored by and produced by Angels and Airwaves, the band started by Tom DeLonge from Blink-182, formerly of Blink-182. And it involves a man an astronaut named Lee Miller, who is alone on an international space station orbiting around the Earth. And it starts with a Civil War sequence, and then it jumps to like 175 years later. It says to the man on the space station, and he's basically alone by himself on the space station, communicating with Houston or some organization on Earth, and some sort of chaos erupts on Earth, and he loses contact with them. So he's alone on a space station orbiting the Earth, no way to get home, nowhere to go. And the movie is basically just all about him in this space station. So for a movie that's just one guy, not in one room, but in one location, the atmosphere they bring out in it, the music and the cinematography are pretty impressive. But it also has, and I'll say towards the end, it has strong elements, in my opinion, of like 2001: A Space Odyssey, the Stanley Kubrick film. And it was a very impressive directorial debut. Yeah, I will say that. So that is Love from 2011. Number 7, we have a film called Happy Accidents from 2000. And this is directed by Brad Anderson. I believe it's his second film. I think his first film was Next Stop Wonderland, I believe. And that's one of the few Brad Anderson movies I haven't seen, that and Vanishing on 7th Street. But I watched this one because I saw Brad Anderson's, I guess, third movie, Session 9, when I was working at Rogers. And that one is one that was going to be pretty high up on the asylum, like movies that take place in an asylum list or haunted locations list, because that movie was pretty awesome. David Caruso and Peter Mullen, where they're cleaning out an abandoned psychiatric facility to get the fiberglass out of there, and strange things start going on. Well, I found out it was one of those things where a guy puts out a movie who's had a few movies in his back pocket already, but this one gains recognition, so that studios are like, okay, well, they know who he is now. We're going to put out he's able to put out his older movies. It's like, okay, you see this is what I did, this is what got me here. And this is one of his films, Happy Accidents. He had actually done before Session 9. And this one stars Vincent D'Onofrio and Marissa Tomei and Holland Taylor. And Marissa Tomei, sort of just a regular woman who, I think she's living in, is it another one in New York City? I'm not sure it says. Doesn't have great luck with guys. Meets this man, played by Vincent D'Onofrio. So she plays Ruby Weaver, and he plays Sam Deed. And he's sort of like an odd individual, very charming. She finds him very charming and interesting, and they're having a good relationship, having a good time. And then he just starts, some weird things start creeping out, and like he eventually comes out with, she's like wants to know what's his deal, what's his story, what's going on, and he eventually comes out with, yeah, I'm actually from the future. I'm what's known as a back traveler, and I'm from the future, and I've come back here to prevent you from dying. There's something bad is going to happen. And she's just like, what? You're out of your mind. You're not from the future. That's not real. Time travel isn't real. And he insists it is, and he's trying to give her all these details to prove he's from the future. And it's another sort of like final where, is he telling the truth or is he crazy? And it's a charming, interesting twist on a romantic comedy or romantic drama, where I'll stop myself there because this isn't one of the ones I'm going to spoil. So that is Happy Accidents. Number 6, we have a film called Plus One, and it's sometimes credited as the words plus one or the literal plus one. And this is a film from 2013 by Dennis Iliadis, who did the Last House on the Left remake. And I found this one, again, just by chance online. I'm like, well, that picture looks interesting. I'll check that out. And the movie is very interesting. It involves a guy who's in a long-distance relationship with his girlfriend, and he surprises her with a visit, and then he goes back to school, and then she surprises him, and they go to a house party. And at the same time as the house party gets into full swing, this comet flies across the sky and strikes the ground. There's a power outage in the party, and when the power comes back on, some strange things start to occur. They're enjoying the party, and then they start to notice copies of themselves elsewhere. And more and more friends notice this, but what's happening is copies of all the people at the party are occurring in a different location, but the different location is where they were, say, 5 minutes ago. So if you were downstairs playing pool, then went upstairs to the bathroom, and then went into the bedroom and started watching TV, and you came out and you'd see a copy of yourself playing pool, which would eventually go up to the bathroom, then the bedroom playing TV. So it's sort of like there's two parties going on in the same location, but at two different times. And as the movie goes on, the time difference between all these guys starts getting closer and closer. It was like, well, some people are interacting with their doubles and some people aren't. They're afraid of them. And it's like, well, what happens if they catch up to us? And are they going to be friendly, and what's going to happen? And it's really, really cool what ends up happening. So that is Plus One. All right. So number five, we have a film called The Endless from 2017. And this is a film by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. And they most notably did the film called Spring, the one I'm sure I mentioned on another list that is credited as the romantic monster movie. And this was their follow-up to that. It's a sci-fi film with horror elements to it. And it involves two brothers, actually played by the directors. And 10 years ago, they were in this part of this commune, which ended up turning out to be sort of like a doomsday UFO death cult kind of thing. And one of the brothers realized it and grabbed the other brother, and they got the hell out of there. So 10 years later, and they're struggling for work, and they get sent a videotape in the mail, and it's footage, and it's like a greetings from people from the commune, the same location where they were 10 years ago. But the thing is, they just got sent this tape, and they look the same age. So one of the brothers they're talking, and one of them is like, I think we should go back and just check in, say hi, say thanks for sending this, whatever. And they get there, and they reconnect with all of them, wondering why they're still all the same age, and they're very cagey and mysterious about what's been going on. And I want to say more. This isn't one of the ones I'm going to spoil, but I want to say more, but it sort of involves, like, it is a cult. There are time loops, because they notice strange things as they investigate the area, where they run into individuals who are involved in time loops. They see these two guys in this one house, which actually are two characters from Benson and Moorhead's first film, Resolution, which I didn't know because I hadn't seen it yet, but I was able to find it recently. And they're playing out a situation. It's two characters from their first film playing out a situation, which I guess is connected to the film they were in, Resolution. And they see the events play out, and then they start all over again. So their loop is like 10, 15 minutes or something. Well, some people's loops are like 2 seconds. You see one guy in a tent get up out of his chair and fall forward and disappear, and get up and fall, and it just keeps going. Like, he's a second and a half, 1, maybe 2 seconds loop, and he's stuck in that loop forever. And so are these other people. And so they need to, I'll stop myself with this, they need to leave before something happens and they get stuck in their own loop. I'll stop there. So it's a really, really, really ambitious film, and really interesting. The Endless. Number 4, we have a film called The Signal, and it is another one by William Eubank. This was his second film. Love was his first one. The Signal was his second, and the third one was Underwater. And this one this is from 2014. This is the first one of his I saw, actually. And it stars, it was in theaters. I don't know how many. There wasn't many. Like Underwater, I thought was more well known. It actually got a decent theater release. Signal, I remember seeing the preview in theater several times, but I don't know which theaters it actually went to. And so I checked it out when I was able to, when I found a copy of it. And it stars Brendan Thwaites from Titans and Gods of Egypt, and he's done a lot lately. Brendan Thwaites, Lawrence Fishburne, Olivia Cook, and where's his name? Bo Knapp, and Lynn Shay is also actually in there. And so you've got 3 MIT students, Jonah, Nick, and Haley. Bo Knapp, Brendan Thwaites, and Olivia Cook. And they're on a road trip because Haley's going to college in California. And, they stop at a hotel and they get contacted by this hacker, Nomad, that they've been tracking. He almost got them expelled from MIT. And he sort of is trolling them and challenging them, and give them location to a farmhouse. They go to the farmhouse trying to trap him or track him down, confront him. And Haley goes outside, and they hear her scream, and they go outside just in time to see her getting sucked away into the night. And because they had heard about, I think they'd heard about UFO abductions in the area. And they wake up, or Brendan Thwaites wakes up in the hospital, and he, like you see earlier in the movie, that he's using those arm crutches because he has problems with his legs. It's either muscular dystrophy or multiple sclerosis. It's never actually said. It's just he needs those to walk. And he wakes up in bed in a hospital, and he has these sessions with this doctor in a hazmat suit it's Dr. Damon, played by Lawrence Fishburne. And he keeps asking him about, when did you first come in contact with the signal? Are you agitated? And he's very confused. He's asking these very confusing questions. And at night, Nick can hear Jonah through the vents. And he has conversations with him, but he doesn't know where he is. He's somewhere in the building, and no one knows where Haley is. And as the movie goes on, there's more and more of the sci-fi elements creep into it. You're starting to learn more about where they might be and what might be going on. You don't learn everything until the very end. And this one I'll leave another one I'll leave to the imagination, or until you watch it. So it's called The Signal. Not to be confused with the other indie film, The Signal, which is sort of like Cell, where this virus goes out over radio waves and starts messing with people's heads and stuff like that. Just a coincidence. This is the same title. The Signal. That one could show up on a list, but I'm not sure what it would be just yet. But that one's also a good movie. But this is The Signal from 2014. So, number 3, we have a film called The 13th Floor. Now, this is one that I'm going to spoil. So, spoiler alert. Okay. Now, this is one that gets overshadowed by The Matrix. It's from 1999, and it came out a month after The Matrix. And it's directed by Joseph Rusnak and stars Craig Bierko, Gretchen Mol, Armin Mueller-Stahl, and Vincent D'Onofrio. Great movie. And it gets lumped in with The Matrix because it does have similar elements. But The Matrix blew up huge, and this came out a month after and really kind of got lost in the shuffle. But I checked it out when it came out on VHS, and I still, to this day, think it's pretty cool. Now, what it is Craig Bierko works with Armin Mueller-Stahl and Vincent D'Onofrio at this company. And Armin Mueller-Stahl is sort of like the scientist in charge, and he disappears at night. Craig Bierko always wondered where he's going, and he ends up following him one night, and it turns out that what they've been trying to do with like creating their own virtual world, sort of like The Matrix, he has created one and has been visiting there frequently, sort of living out a second life there. And it's one that takes place, the world that he's created is 1937 Los Angeles. And one night he is murdered, and Craig Bierko, what's his character's name? Douglas Hall, becomes the primary suspect, and he's been investigated by the cop played by Dennis Haysbert, president from the first few seasons of 24. And he, let me see. He ends up investigating things in the 1937 Los Angeles world that his boss had created, and finding clues and stuff like that. Because in that world, you'll get if I went into it, there'd be a version of me in some role, and if I went into that world, I would inhabit that body. And it's like, oh, well, I'm a bartender in a restaurant in 1937 Los Angeles. But you'd also run into, say, your best friend. Like, he runs into Vincent D'Onofrio, who is a bartender in that world, doesn't recognize him, and goes by a different name. But if Vincent D'Onofrio hooked himself up, it would be Vincent D'Onofrio playing that role in there. And like most of the movie, it takes place between those two worlds, the present and that past that was created. And what he discovers is when he tries to leave town, he can't, but he gets to the edge and all of a sudden there's nothing. And like he talks to Gretchen Mol, who is a woman he meets, and she's like, "Where are you?" He said, "Oh, I guess you could call it the end of the world." And you see that part in the trailer. Well, you see that part in the trailer. So I guess they kind of spoil it in the trailer. And you look up and it's like this green, boxy, digitized version of that the world is unfinished. So their world is actually fake and created by someone else. And they, being fake, created their own world inside another world. So the real world actually is in 2024, a more futuristic looking Los Angeles. And what happened was the real version of Craig Bierko inhabited his body and used him to do these nasty, nasty, evil things. So what ends up happening is, and I'm leaving out a lot of details, and I'm spoiling it, but he ends up switching places with the original guy, because he's evil and killed people, or used him to kill people. So he is able to kill this guy and inhabit the body. So basically go back, the guy who thought he was real, who was actually a creation, gets to go back and inhabit the body of the real guy, which is probably a good thing because he's a good guy inhabiting an evil man's body, so he would be able to live out his life the right way. Okay. I apologize if it's a little confusing, but there's some movies where you just want to talk about them. And it's like, okay, but I can't talk about this unless I spoil it. Otherwise, I have to stop myself, and I can't. But sometimes you just want to talk about the ending. And if they haven't seen it, just like, I can't tell you. But anyway, so the 13th Floor. Number two, we have a film from 2011 called The Adjustment Bureau. Now, this one may have had a wide release. I think it may have, but I think it gets forgotten about in terms of Matt Damon and Emily Blunt movies. I don't know if it was under the radar or not, but I saw this one with my buddy Bevan, and I swear, it has some charming, funny parts, and I swear, I think we were the only two people laughing in the theater. Because it is largely a dramatic, thriller-ish kind of movie, but it has a very strong sci-fi element to it. Because it's based on Philip K. Dick's story. Short story, I believe. And so, yeah, it stars Matt Damon, Emily Blunt, Anthony Mackie, John Slattery, Terrence Stamp. Bunch of people in there. Also Pedro Pascal, which I keep missing to pick him out. But apparently he plays a waiter in there. For those of you fans of The Mandalorian and Game of Thrones. Anyway, it's sort of a guy who's a politician trying to run to be the youngest senator in history in his district of New York. And he can't get anywhere because there are these individuals who actually control the events of people's lives. And they say at one point where, like, okay, yeah, well, we stepped back and let you do, and then you gave us the Dark Ages, and then we stepped in, and we stepped back. You had, like, the Age of Renaissance, and we stepped back, and there was the plague and stuff like that. So you guys don't really get it. You can't be left alone. We have to control things. And he doesn't want to be controlled. He wants to live his life his own way, and it's like, well, that's not going to work. So there's that struggle going on in the movie, but only a handful of people are even aware of them. You're not supposed to be aware of them. So that's the really interesting sci-fi element. And they have this thing where they have the special hat on. They can open a door and go pretty much anywhere they want in the city, as long as they have that hat on, depending on which way they turn the doorknob. So I'll leave it at that. So that was The Adjustment Bureau. Now, the last one. This is the last one, number 1 on the list, and it is another one that I'm going to spoil. This is from 2009. It is called Pandorum, and it's a film by Christian Alvar, and produced by Paul W.S. Anderson. Make of that what you will. I think he's a great director. I also think this Christian Alvar is a great director. Anyway, this is the other one I'm going to spoil, so spoiler alert. Now, this one stars Dennis Quaid, Ben Foster. I always forget her name. It's a French actress. Her name is Antia Trau, I guess. She was, when they did Man of Steel, and you get like Zod and his minions that show up, like in the original Star Wars. Well, she plays the updated female version. It's the only thing I'd really seen her in. And martial artist, MMA star Kung Lee also appears in a role. Norman Reedus is in there for a little bit. And let me see, Cam Gigandet from Never Back Down and Twilight and various other things is in there. Does a great job. And you basically got Ben Foster playing Corporal Bauer. He wakes up on this massive spaceship that has been traveling across the universe to, it turns out like the world's population is too big, the food's running out, and they need to find a new home. Not an original idea, but what they did with this is, and basically like all these people got on this ship, and they're on a long journey across the universe to this new home. I can't remember what the name of the planet is. It's like Taurus or Toron or something. I can't remember. And he wakes up because he's supposed to be woken up. They have shifts of like, you go for this long and you go back into cryo sleep, and then the next shift wakes up and then takes over. And he wakes up another guy because he needs to know what's going on, because when you wake up, he sees instructions saying from the cryo sleep that you will have temporary amnesia. You don't know how long it's going to last. So he wakes up another guy who's Dennis Quaid, and they're trying to find and restore power to this ship because it's really dark and they don't know what's going on. And while Ben Foster's exploring the ship, Dennis Quaid is trying to find his way to the bridge. And Dennis Quaid comes across Cam Gigandet, who's another guy from the ship, who seems to have an idea of what's going on. And Ben Foster comes into contact with Kung Lee, Antia Trau, Norman Reedus, but also these savage, pale, monster-like humanoids that are basically headhunters and taking out people left and right on the ship. And some people know what they are and some people don't. Essentially, where they came from was people were given these vitamins or whatever that would help them. The goal was for them to help them adapt to the new world they landed on. But what happened was, this was, I think it was supposed to be like 163 year journey to get from here to the new world. Well, they got to the new world and they crashed because of various events. One of the guys, Cam Gigandet, is actually playing the younger version of Dennis Quaid. So it's a hallucination he's having there with his younger self. And when they left Earth, turns out that Earth blew up after they left. So whoever's on the ship is going to be the new civilization. And they traveled across the universe, crashed on the planet because Cam Gigandet's character, Dennis Quaid's character, basically went to sleep for a while, got up, woke other people up, decided to play God with all these people, and then went back to sleep, and then got up again, playing God with all these people. Anyway, you don't know exactly the extent of his actions, but they were bad. And the ship ended up crashing on the planet 163 years after it left Earth. Well, it sat there for 800 years. So some of the people have been in cryosleep for 800 years or 963 years, nearly a millennia. And the stuff that was given to people to make them adapt to the planet, the ones who were awake adapted to the ship. And generations and generations, 800 years of generations have evolved them into this. And you get to this part and you're just like, but I still love watching the movie because you watch and you see how things play out. So yeah, that's why I put the spoiler alert up, because it was an awesome twist, but it's also an awesome movie. So, oh man. And yeah, again, I'm leaving out a lot of details because I don't want to tell you absolutely everything. I want you to watch the movie and enjoy it. So, that was Pandorum. Oh, Pandorum is also explained as sort of like a space dementia, because they reference the most biggest disaster in U.S. history or something, where a guy basically went mad in space, ejected like 400 people all into space into their pods, ejected them into oblivion, just basically killing them all, just lost his mind. So it's sort of a space dementia, and there are symptoms where you start to shake, you start to hallucinate or whatever. So that's where the title comes from. Anyway, so that is the end of this list. I went a little bit long, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I may do it again from this room, maybe. I don't know, I like the little swivel chair here and the change of background. All right, I guess I'll talk to you later. Toodles. Like and subscribe, please.